Hello and welcome to RJI Insight, where we put a spotlight on some of the programs, projects, and research here at the Reynolds Journalism Institute that help journalism get better, faster, and smarter. Today I'm here with Mikel Lauber, who is the news director at KOLN in Lincoln and two other stations in Nebraska. And Mikel and I were just at a workshop on how to bring the 4-day work week to broadcast newsrooms. Mikel has been doing this for 14 years, and this is his third station, so 3 stations, 14 years of employing the 4-day work week schedule for certain folks. And so I think that makes you an expert.
I don't know about that.
Well, yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
And I thought what we would do is just kind of talk about some of the highlights from the workshop. First one is, what are some of the benefits that you've found in terms of using a 4-day work week?
Yeah, so some of the benefits are things that are benefits to 4-day work week regardless of the industry. Things like it's going to be a big recruiting advantage for you. I've found that if we post a job with a 4-day work week and list that in the job listing, that's going to get a lot more clicks than one that's maybe a traditional shift. There's also the advantage of being able to control overtime more easily, and that's been a big motivator and factor for us. I found that especially with MMJ workflow, we ask MMJs to do so much in a given day between setting up the story, shooting the story, writing it, getting all the video, doing all the digital responsibilities, going live, everything that goes into an MMJ's day. It takes longer than 8 hours most of the time to get that done anyways, if it's going to be done well. So 410s has just always lent itself very naturally to the MMJ.
For our non-TV folks, can you define MMJ?
Yes, multimedia journalists. So, it's the reporters in the newsroom that work all by themselves. A lot of newsrooms use a combination of reporters who work with photographers, and of course that's a big advantage when you're a reporter because the photographer can help a lot with getting your video, editing the piece together, even help with setting stories up. Drive, giving you that work time back if you've got a long drive to a story and you're able to write. But an MMJ is doing it all themselves, so that extra workload is very real.
Yeah.
A big concern for me and for the industry is burnout in journalists, which I think all of us who work in newsrooms see to some extent. And I think this, having that 3-day weekend light at the end of the tunnel every week, I think is a really good tool to help let employees decompress and have something to look forward to and get a little bit of time for work-life balance.
Yeah, which helps retention, helps them stick around longer. And actually the burnout, I'm glad you brought that up because a year ago, that was one of the key findings of a national survey that RJI did about trying to find solutions to burnout in newsrooms, and that's one of the reasons we had the workshop.
It is, and it was interesting because I wasn't really too familiar with that study, but I looked it up as soon as we started talking about doing this workshop, and it was the #1 suggestion from current and former journalists about a way to maybe relieve some stress and some pressure on journalists is to work 4 days instead of 5. And so, it was a very natural thing to kind of talk about coming off of that research.
Yeah. So now let's talk about if folks want to do this and be successful. We talked about 3 things that really are critical to getting prepared. So the first one was kind of identifying your pain points. So tell us about that.
That's right. So I think when you think about doing a 4-day work week in your newsroom, don't do it just to do it. If you you take that approach, there is a very real risk, and I've definitely seen examples that you're going to lose some productivity. But I think if you see a position or even an employee, somebody in your newsroom who is overloaded and maybe trying to do more than 40 hours worth of work, that's a pain point. That's a very natural place to focus. And again, for us, MMJs have always been a natural spot. Pain point can also be a recruiting pain point, just a position where you're having trouble getting people in the door. And I know for a lot of stations that's producers as well. And so we've got some stations that I spoke with that are experimenting with ways to make this work for producers.
Okay, good. The second one was to kind of have a goal when you're going to go from an 8-hour shift to a 10-hour shift. What are you trying to achieve? Yeah.
So like we talked about, you're going to see a lot of very natural advantages in your recruiting and culture and some things that are going to improve just kind of automatically moving to a 4-day work week, which is one of the good reasons to do it. But I also think it's important to have a goal that's specific to your station that will help you ensure that the employees that make the switch stay productive. So, eliminating overtime for MMJs is a natural one. A lot of newsrooms are trying to do more digital and find time for more podcast, streaming products, streaming newscasts, all kinds of digital elements. And so this could be a tool if you've got some anchors or reporters or producers that are interested in doing some streaming content or have those abilities. If you give them 2 extra hours in their day, it might be something where they can still produce the shows they were doing or generate the content they were generating, but then have a little bit of extra time to focus on something that's a specific goal for your newsroom.
And then the third one, perhaps most important, they're all important, is kind of being prepared with your presentation strategy, how you're going to explain this to the staff, to the general manager, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that is a very important one. And you may find that, and I think the reason this isn't done in a lot of newsrooms is because there's a lot of initial skepticism that you're going to lose something. You're going to lose some content or lose productivity in some way. And that can happen if it's not carefully managed. So I think depending on which stakeholder you're thinking about, if it's your GM or your corporate office, I think the pitch there is, hey, by having better retention with a certain position, we're going to save a lot of money on recruiting and on turnover. And by saving overtime, that's an automatic savings in my budget as well. So the financial case for the stakeholders above you that are worried about the money, I think, is powerful. And then you need buy-in from the rest of the newsroom, because chances are you're not going to be able to do a 4-day work week for everyone. Again, you want to focus on your pain points. So you need to be prepared to explain to the other stakeholders in the newsroom why it's happening, why it's important, and how they're going to benefit. If you are doing a 4-day work week for producers, for example, and you have an anchor asking why, I think that anchor would be pretty happy if the producers stick around longer and they have some more experienced producers. And so there's, you just have to think about every position in the newsroom that's going to be impacted and why for them this could be a benefit. In my experience, it's gone over pretty well.
Thank you for coming to RJI and helping us put on this workshop. We have a lot more details on the website, so you can read about that at rjionline.org. Thank you for watching.